All right, we have a fun conversation in store for you tonight, everybody. But before I introduce our featured guest, we'd like to give you a sense for her working environment. Let's roll the tape. It is my pleasure to welcome to the GeekWire Playbook stage the CEO and General Manager of the three-time WNBA champion, Seattle Storm, Alisha Valavanis. All right, so Alisha, before we jump in, I think I need to, yeah, sure we are. Welcome to the Playbook.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
What's up, everybody?
I feel like we need to address the elephant in the room before we start. So, or is that the wildcat in the room? Because you and I actually share something in common. We are both graduates of California State University, Chico. And
what's up, Wildcats? We got it right here.
I don't know if you noticed, but one of the beers on in the bar tonight was Sierra Nevada. And in fact, Chico State University President Gail Hutchinson has sent her emissary, Evelyn Buchanan, from the administration to be here to watch and see what happens. So
and get rowdy and do Chico State things.
No,
so.
They don't do that anymore.
No.
It's not Pioneer Days anymore. All right. So Alisha, I want to walk through a little bit of your background first, because you have a fascinating personal story. And one of the things that people may not know about you is that you have a twin sister.
I do.
And I have to say...
Sorry about that.
No, it's right. So I have to say...
Thank you.
I have a lot of dirt on you because I had a conversation with your twin sister, Alexa, earlier this week. So
nice work on the background there.
So we'll talk about that as we go. You grew up in Indiana.
I did.
So yeah. Basketball is in your blood. What does basketball mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, growing up a Hoosier, they throw you a ball before you can walk. So we grew up, and I have an identical twin sister, and we played ball from the time we could walk, as I mentioned, and it's been a part of the journey the entire way. We played together at Chico State, then we started coaching, and really from there, this has been the walk.
So it's interesting that you have a twin sister. You were both in the backcourt. She was the point guard. You were the shooting guard, the off guard. What is it about your personality that made you the shooter and her the point guard?
I think very early on we realized that if we both wanted to be on the court at the same time, we're 5'3". We had to be the backcourt. It wasn't the option of like, I'll run the 5, sis. You take the ball up.
Right.
We both kind of started in that point guard role. I was comfortable, shooting the ball. She is a shooter as well. So we kind of, just decided we wanted to play together, and this is the way to make it work.
So what was it like growing up with someone who had such similar interests? And I'll tell you the way she described it, the way Alexa described it was, she felt like she had a mirror. And it was interesting from a personal growth and development standpoint, because you were not only competing against each other, but you could see on the other side of the court or on the other side of the kitchen table someone who was very similar to you. Describe that dynamic and how it played into your own development as a person.
First, I got to tell you, next level to call the twin. I mean, that is a first. So way to go ahead and pick up the phone on that one. The truth is, it's what we knew. You get a lot of twin questions when you're a twin, believe it or not. It's usually...
At the end?
Can you feel it if she gets hit?
Oh.
What do you think? No. That is always the question. We have an interesting situation, to move just slightly from your question, but I'll get back to it, because I'm one of 6. There are 2 sets of identical twins in the family. So
And there's 10 years in between the first set of kids and the second set of kids.
Yes.
Different dads.
It's frightening because I didn't know you really did know all the things. So this is interesting.
We've just gotten started.
Twin. Yes, so really for us, though, as Alexa clearly shared, it was a unique experience to know that what you were going through, someone else really was going through as well. But what it also was, and the truth is, and some of my team is here tonight, I kill sports analogies, kill them at the office. But to have a built-in backcourt your entire life is a pretty special thing. And she's the CEO as well. And on my drive over here tonight, she was doing a big keynote this evening for her work, which is the North Valley Community Foundation in Chico, and they are at the center of the relief efforts for the Camp Fire, and it's been 1 year. And my twin is at the front of that, leading those relief efforts with so many stakeholders in Chico. So it was really cool, and this happens often where we're both on the phone talking. I was sharing with her a little bit about this and what we were gonna have a conversation about tonight, and she was sharing with me what was going on for her. So the truth is, every step of the way, I've had a teammate, and that's been a unique, special experience. And we talk a lot of business daily. We talk a lot of business. It's remarkable how her experience is so similar, although we're doing something that is so very different.
Right, and as you said, she's the CEO of the North Valley Community Foundation, and that, I can just attest, is the center of the financial philanthropic effort to help Paradise and the entire North Valley region recover from that devastating fire. And today is the 1-year anniversary. Yes. And so you both have big events tonight. Yeah. What have you learned from her?
There is no question my twin has been one of my greatest coaches. My mother as well, as I mentioned, 6 kids. So long before I understood the power of a team and really what it meant to have a high-performing team, I was living it and experiencing it. And my father as well, but my mother was this incredible coach who was helping us understand the power of communication, the power of playing to your strengths but passing the ball when it wasn't yours. The power, we talk all the time about team and what it means to build a team, but what's it really mean when you're in it and you have to pass the ball? What's it really mean to value somebody else's role? And so my mother was this incredible coach, but very early on, my sister is baby A and I'm baby B, and there is no question she figured out some stuff before me. Now, we have different stories about it. I said I was kicking her out. I needed a little bit more space. But she is the baby A, and she is without question one of my greatest coaches. And one story I'll share with you is when we were in grad school. We were both studying journalism communications, and she was very close to completion as I was. We were just months away from finishing. And I remember the night she walked into our apartment and said, I'm going to finish this, but right now I've got to go. And I'm thinking where? To grab Thai food? I had no idea what she was talking about. She said, I've met somebody. I really want to do some work in Shanghai, and I think I'm going to go and teach for a little while and then come back. And the truth is, she went to Shanghai, she taught, and then from there, she went to Antigua, Guatemala. And she started a nonprofit in Antigua for indigenous women there, which is a whole nother incredible story. But what she taught me in that moment is you have got to follow your passion. No matter what the timing is, no matter how other people are measuring your success, telling you what winning looks like. And I was thrilled to get the degree, move into coaching, and kind of stay on my track. But it has stayed with me that she was willing to kind of abandon any notion of failure or someone saying, that's not what winning looks like. You just left right before you finished up. And she's been winning ever since. So that is something that has stayed with me. One of the greatest lessons is to continue to audit what you're doing with your minutes and your time. This is it. These are the moments. And I know so many of you are doing incredible work that has incredible impact in this community and in others' lives. This is it. These are our minutes. And so I do that audit. I try to do it regularly, and it's without question from my twin.
So I will spare you all of the background that I dug up from your former professors, but I will
Please.
just say, when it comes time to write your biography, just come see me. I've already done all the work. So
I appreciate
we're all
that.
good.
Thank you.
So from Chico State, you went on to serve as a collegiate coach, WNBA scout. You worked in the front office for the Golden State Warriors. You were the associate athletics director at UC Berkeley. And then you came to the Seattle Storm. What attracted you to the Storm as a job, as a team, as a place to build your own future?
So many things, but I think along that journey, there were some common threads to all of those positions, as different as they were. The opportunity to work in sports, to have a positive impact, is a special one. Just as in each of your different areas of business, you have this unique platform to do something that matters. And I think along the way, I was continuing to try to do this audit of, but what do I really, really want to do? What do I want to spend my time doing? And I kept coming back to college athletes and student athletes that experience, particularly women. I mean, I was afforded that incredible opportunity. I was a college basketball player, so with that came some wonderful opportunity, and I wanted to give back in that space. But I was very interested in business, the business of sports. And so as I kind of went along the journey that you just noted, I was trying to understand how I could scale it, how we could have the most impact on the women's side of sports to meet this need for equality and this need for kind of a more fair, equitable world. And as I was on that journey, I knew I needed to go see sports at the highest level. And Rick Welts is a friend of mine and was running the Golden State Warriors, doing a phenomenal job, wanted to see that business. And boy, have they done some phenomenal things at Golden State. But when I was there, as incredible as it was, I was waking up every day and it was pro men's basketball. And I loved the community work they were doing, but for me, it just was not the calling. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to impact women and girls. And so had the opportunity at Berkeley to do something that actually prepared me for this job, because at the end of the day, we are running businesses, and professional sports is a business. And you have to have corporate partnership and buy-in on a whole nother level to make this go. There is no Title IX. There are things, I mean, every single day it is the business of running a pro team. And so when they called, it was not something that was, on the list circled at the top, want to run a pro team. It was just a conversation with three women that are absolutely badass and spending their time and their energy and their resources to make this world a better place just by one effort every day with this WNBA team. And I thought, wow, I want to be a part of that. So really it was a conversation with this group.
You started not as CEO, but you came in as general manager?
I came in as the CEO. It was called COO at the time, but it was the top spot. I actually became the GM shortly thereafter.
You've compared running the Storm to a startup.
Yeah.
How so?
I mean, although I haven't run a startup, from conversations with those that have, it seems very analogous. I mean, at the end of the day, you believe in something. You're trying to find your space, your market share. You're trying to cut through the noise so that people can experience and hopefully have a lot of value from what you're doing. And my hope would be that many of you are doing that for some greater cause and good, that it's actually going to make the world a better place because of the work you're doing, the product, the service. The WNBA, not all teams are independent. There are actually only a few that are truly independent, because we have two that are part of casinos and much, much bigger entertainment companies. Those independent teams, I mean, I could go through what our day-to-day is, and I would imagine it's very similar to the day-to-day of a brand new startup in terms of the hustle, the grind. Everybody's doing a million different things. Everybody's got to buy in, lock arms to an idea that has not yet totally materialized. We are all still, every single day, playing for something that has not happened, which is equality in sports, which is equal pay, and a million topics that we could talk about. And so in that way, I think it's very analogous. And also just the culture. People buying into each other and an idea. I mean, startups have power and fuel just in what is happening with the humans that are a part of them. And that's the same thing with the WNBA. And I think it's also, I think about the Sounders, how they started with the Seahawks, and then how they were able to move on their own and what they're doing now. I mean, incredible. So, I think there are probably a ton of similarities, but at the end of the day, you believe in what you're doing, and you're trying to show the world to believe in it as well.
Every single thing you said there I want to follow up on, but let's start with equal pay. We've seen some significant attention, at least, not necessarily movement, but we did see the Australian women's soccer team
that was huge.
Get pay equity with the men's soccer team. We have seen with the U.S. women's soccer team a real push, even a legal push to be able to do that. To what extent do you talk about this with your players, with the people on your team? Where are you on this issue, and where do you see it personally playing into your own interactions with the league?
Well, we're in the middle of a CBA negotiation, so relatively limited in terms of talking points on this.
Collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, but the truth is, let's just take it up to the highest level to get to really what you're asking, which is, this is a part of the conversation every day. I mean, every day we're in a conversation with players and with all of our stakeholders on how we can change this game. And I would imagine that everyone in the room, if, I asked, I'm not asking for a show of hands because I believe you guys are all here tonight. You probably do have, you value, we have alignment in our values, I would imagine. But when asked, do you value women's sports? Do you think this matters for our children, for not only our little girls, but our little boys to grow up in a world where they can see women play professional sports? Most people would immediately throw a hand up. Absolutely. That is something I value. I want my children to be raised in a world where women, many of whom are women of color, have a chance to play professional sports, get paid, not the challenges that come with a WNBA where most of your season is overseas away from your families just to make the economics work. Most people would immediately raise a hand. That isn't the issue. We don't have an issue with, I don't believe, with whether or not people believe it's right and believe the world would be a better place with what is just the outcome, which is this pay gap, which illustrates a miss in terms of what we do value, not what we say we value. At the end of the day, I believe this to be true. What you value can be measured by your time, your energy, and your money, your resources. Where do you put those three things? This is not rocket science. I'm not offering anything profound tonight. I'm just saying that if you really think about where you put your time and where you put your energy, far, far more important assets in this walk than our money. But where you put those things, that is what you value. And our question and our challenge is, as a society, if we value women, not just women in sports, if we value women, where are we putting our time? Where are we putting our energy? Where are we putting our resources to change the game? The exciting thing is the WNBA is a lot of fun. It's like go out with your family, have a great time, it's entertainment, and you're actually making the world a better place. So it's not this hard sell.
Can I say it's also better basketball, frankly?
It's good basketball. It's very good basketball. The men's game's great as well.
That's my opinion.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
But I think our call to action is, if you care, show up. If you care, show up. And Seattle does. Seattle shows up for our team. So I've got to give it up to the room in Seattle. Seattle shows up, but we need the rest of the country too. Yep,
absolutely. And you have a number of Storm fans, I know, in the audience, including lots of season ticket holders here today. And let me amend my comments. It's real basketball. That's what I want to say. Let's talk about that fan base, because I think there are analogies to, obviously, the customer base. What have you learned in your time as the leader of the Storm about catering to customers, delivering a product that meets their needs, that exceeds their expectations, and what can the startup leaders in the audience learn from what you've learned?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge question. I will say, since we are in this wonderful space, the idea that we would let the fans choose the GM is great. No.
Is referring to the Sounders.
Yeah, the Sounders allowed that. It wouldn't be I thought that was a bold move. So we won't be doing that next year. But no, here's the truth, and I think this applies to all of your stakeholders. Get to know them. Listen to your audience. Listen to your people.
How do you do that?
So,
You want to a little bit closer, yeah.
I have such a coach's voice. I always am like,
No, you're good.
The truth is, I think you have to communicate, and we're all learning this. You have to communicate with people the way they want you to communicate with them. So, with technology, with all these incredible opportunities, we are moving to all of those platforms. We are moving to all of those platforms to get immediate and direct feedback from our fans. But we have a fan base that wants to interact. They want to interact with the players. They want to ask direct questions about the concessions to me. It's always the number one thing.
What?
Is it, Adrian, for you guys?
Is it?
Yeah, cold hot dogs, which I know isn't right, obviously, but we're excited about this new arena, maybe the temple change on those. But direct feedback and direct conversation, but I really think it's about being authentic. And I do believe that our fans know, even if it's not perfect, we care, we're trying to get it right. I think in business that goes so far. A product, a service, even if, and at the board table, and in a meeting with your colleagues, if something doesn't go right, my bad. Say it. Acknowledge it. I mean, I think this is one area where business can really continue to grow if you acknowledge when something does not go well and you move forward through that space. And I think we try to do that with our fans. I think we try to offer a really authentic space to better understand how they want to communicate with us and what they want.
I want to talk about team building, but I actually want to acknowledge my misstep earlier. I forgot the most important question at the end of the pay equity discussion. Do you envision yourself participating in or leading an effort to change the pay gap in the WNBA in the future?
I mean, the truth is, I believe all of our efforts every single day create an environment and a context to allow us to close that gap. I think it's going to take more than the 12, ownership groups and teams right now that are already investing. I think this is a much bigger conversation. But you know what? I think it's happening, and I think there can be real movement here soon, but it's going to take collective buy-in. We need corporate America involved in what we have going on. I don't know if you guys saw the NWSL championship game, but without giving too much, product love, Budweiser actually played a commercial that called out corporate America to invest in the NWSL. I mean, that was pretty special. Their own space, their own platform, what they paid for, they were encouraging others to get involved. And I thought, that is the call to action. We need corporate America involved. That is what's going to tip this. We need media involved. That is what's going to tip it. Because the truth is, if your little ones grow up in a household where when you are flipping through channels, you see the WNBA, it changes everything. It changes everything. When your little one, girl or boy, can go to the store and pick up signature Sue Bird shoes. So I think my answer to your question is that this has to be a collective effort. We have to get in this game together if we want change. And sports is one of those leading spaces. Sports is this incredible platform to really illustrate and show what's going to happen. I think we have a real responsibility to drive societal change through it because we know we have the power to do it.
Yeah. I'm going to take that as a yes. All right, so team building. You are in a unique position. You're not just the CEO, but you are the general manager. Can you explain for folks who don't run sports teams what that means you do?
A lot of time off, a lot of vacation.
You assemble the team.
Yes, I assemble the team. So in short, on the GM side, it's a very collaborative effort, but I work with the coaching staff. They report to me. Work with the staff on the selection of players and the negotiation of contracts with agents and whatnot, and the draft work. And the assistant GM is in the house tonight, Talisa. Alana's also in the house, and Alana came to a speaking engagement over a year ago. Actually, Alana needs the shout too. Alana's in the house. I'm going to tell you why, what she does with the Storm. Alana came to a speaking engagement I had over a year ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, year and a half ago. Followed up after and said, can we get a cup of coffee? Pitched an idea about why it mattered that the U.S. and the WNBA got involved with the 3-on-3 conversation in advance of the new sport in the Olympics in 2020, and why there was already starting to be a gap in on the women's side, why the men's and her husband is a men's pro on the 3X team for USAB. But she saw a gap, and we are going to see that widen if we do not get involved. She pitched an idea. She's now full-time with Force 10 Sports Management and the Storm, and we launched the first ever pro women's 3X team this year. So now give it up for Alana. What was your question?
I can't remember. So the thing I was setting you up for was, I know that a lot of startup leaders, especially when they're starting out, have a problem breaking out of their success as an individual contributor to be a coach or a manager or a leader. You assemble the team, but then you don't get to make the calls during the game. In other words, you don't get to say, or do you? How do you handle that? How do you not micromanage?
I'm right on the other side texting Talisa, hit Dan Hughes and put in, no, you trust your coaches. Okay, I get your question. Micromanagement, and how do you assemble and then pass? And it's really, from what I mentioned very early on, a true belief I have in leadership and team, which is this concept of passing the ball. And it's hard. It's really hard in business when you're trying to have your seat at the table, you're on your climb, you want to add value, you want to demonstrate that you belong in the room, but it might not be your strength always. And you guys have all been in rooms where it's not necessarily the person's strength that is going on for 45 minutes about whatever the topic is, right?
Not this room, but go ahead.
Right. But the truth is, we have to pass the ball. We have to understand that we have to play to our strengths and pass the ball to the people on our team that have strengths in the areas we don't. And of course, what happens is that player passes the ball back, and culture is lifted, and trust is built. And I think, for me, and some of it is just how I deeply believe in trust in human beings and want people to, be in their space and do what they do. And some of it's a function of time and energy and the importance of trust so that people in our business can run their line of business. I don't micromanage. These two would tell you that. At the end of the day, there isn't time for it, and who's winning in a micromanaging situation? All it's demonstrating is you do not trust your team. That's what it demonstrates. What happens when you pass someone the ball and you offer them trust? They play up. To me, it's this crazy concept, and I know people have different philosophical beliefs on this one. I truly believe that you don't have to earn my trust. Like, start earning it. Okay, I'll let you know in 6 months or a year if I trust you enough to give you information. I trust you. You're on this team. We brought you in. Now, if someone breaks trust, that's a different conversation. But I lead with and deeply believe that we should trust one another. And one thing I find powerful in teams is really thinking about and understanding this one concept, which is we judge ourselves based on our intentions, and we judge others based on their actions. And you think this is some very oh, yeah, of course. But if you really think about it day to day in your work, really think about, you are judging yourself based on what you're intending, and you're judging your teammates based on their actions. That's the first immediate. And then pause and think about judging them based on what their intentions probably were, instead of what they showed up. This is tough in business when someone shows up, totally derails something you're working on. You're frustrated. Timelines, bottom lines, top lines, all of this is real. But at the end of the day, I feel that, and Talisa knows, we have conversations with our players around these topics. Because human beings are complex. In startups, Fortune 100s, pro teams, it's all the same game. We're all the same. So at the end of the day, high-performing teams and the algorithm for a high-performing team at a Fortune 100 company is the exact same for how you cut down nuts. So to me, it's about kindness, compassion. It's about all of these things, and that means passing the ball. And that means as leaders recognizing that the goal is not to have followers, it's to build leaders. It's to trust your team. It's to let people shoot the ball, which is ironic because I was always shooting the ball, but I don't believe that. I believe that it's about passing the ball so others can shoot.
Alexa would disagree with you, but we'll get to that. You actually held the record for three-pointers at Chico State for 3 points. Yeah, you held it.
I did.
Tense.
Next question.
Yes. All right.
My playing career.
So let's talk about the team you've assembled.
Yes, let's do it.
Talk about Sue Bird as a leader.
Oh my gosh. And she is now back on the court. She played, and
right.
Did they win, Talisa? Is it over?
Yes, let's assume yes. All
Yeah,
right.
USAB is playing a circuit right now against some college teams, which is fun, and it is Sue's entry back onto the court,
Great.
so that's been fun. Sue is an absolute leader, and she does her, which that's one thing I haven't mentioned yet, but authentic leadership. Is there anything greater? Like your competitive advantage in anything you're doing is to be who you are. Sue has her own jam. She leads by example. She's not somebody that's like screaming and yelling at them. She does her thing. She leads her way. And the truth is this entire team is better. And this city has had this leader for the Seattle Storm almost the entire tenure of the Storm. So it's been pretty special. We're excited to have her back.
That's great. One of the things that you've been able to do is draft and assemble a next generation team as well. Let's talk about some of those players. First off, Stewie.
Yes.
Brianna Stewart. So,
and she'll be back soon as well.
Yes. So, and also Jewel Lloyd, obviously, were the two key draft picks that led the way to the 2018 championship. What lessons did you learn in the process of recruiting, matching the culture? How does that work in terms of the draft, and what lessons can the startup leaders here take from what you learned there that led to that championship?
All right, here it is. Losing is a huge part of winning that people don't talk a lot about. So you just mentioned, we had two back-to-back #1 draft picks, which meant there were a lot of losses. That's the way that works. It's a lottery based on ranking. So when I took this job, the ownership group signed up for a rebuild. So this is where we determined and talked about and communicated with our players and with our fans and with all of our stakeholders what a rebuild meant. And you cannot dance around the fact that if you're in a development, very young rebuild, there will be losses, and we were not measuring against those losses. We were not measuring our success against that. Now, what we were fortunate to have happen is two back-to-back #1 picks. And we also had a timeline that was quicker than we had expected because of Brianna Stewart and this cast. We won the championship in year 4 of that rebuild. But the truth is, and I know this is analogous on the startup side, there are losses. You are in uncharted territory trying to get investors, trying to help people believe in what you believe in. And that is the only way you're going to win. But it's not, and I'm not telling you all anything you don't know, it's definitely not easy. And if someone else's measure of success was something that I crumbled under, it would have been a problem. But at the end of the day, we signed up for and we knew that losing was a part of it. And that's how we were able to secure the players and some of this other work.
So 2018, back at the peak with the championship. 2019 was a difficult year, a challenging year because of injuries to the two players we see right there. How did you make it through that? Because you made the playoffs, which the team made the playoffs, which surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, that's 100% just kind of a acknowledgement of the winners that were around that team, on that team, the coaches. I mean, a lot of people, there was a storyline that we really were going to fall, not make the playoffs, and without those two, we were going to crumble this year, and they just demonstrated that they were winners. I mean, they fought every single night. Our team, I mean, I could go through the players, but Alicia Clark, who Alisha has her own story, had been cut from 3 training camps before she led the team this year emotionally to a playoff run. We had 3 all-defensive players on the team this year. They bought into their identity and who they could be without the powerhouse of Sue and Stewie scoring and on the offensive side of the ball. They bought into a different identity, which is not easy overnight to go from this is who we are, this is how we score, this is how we win, to let's go, let's buy into being a strong defensive team and making it hard for people to get through us.
What did you tell the organization and the team after it became clear that Sue and Stewie were not going to be there for that season, and what role did that message play in the ability to stick with it?
I mean, we immediately started having conversations with the coaching staff, and the truth is we had a very difficult moment in addition to the 2 players with our head coach being diagnosed with cancer, and he had to step aside in the very beginning to go through that. And so the truth is it was a lot of soul searching, and we had some tough times with the team, but really it just brought this group together looking back. I mean, they came together as a group. They are winners. And at the end of the day, that was what was demonstrated on the court. They went out there and fought for each other, didn't buy into any narrative out there that we were just going to have a bad year, chalk it up, go for a draft pick. That wasn't the goal. We wanted to make playoffs. We wanted to show this city that we respect that they are driving up to Everett to see us play. We respect that everybody is in this with us, and the players did just that.
I'm going to open it up to questions after this question, but you mentioned earlier the importance of community partnerships and sponsorships, and I get the sense that trust, value, and the values of the sponsor or the community partner are a driving force, a real factor in the companies that you choose to partner with?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the conversations are pretty special, and they start with what do you believe in and what kind of impact do you want to have in the community. We would love to connect in that space and then use sports to have a really good time and talk about, at the end of the day, the corporate partners we have, and we have an incredible list of corporate partners, but all of the activation is around something special in the community, from youth sports to health and wellness. Each partnership has activation on the court and off the court, and that's something really special. And of course, this happens often on the men's side as well. But these brands are coming on board using the power of sports for good and making real change in the community, and that is consistent across all of our partners.
How do you match those things? Because oftentimes the one that has the values that reflect yours might not have the funding to support what you want to do. That seems like it would be a huge challenge, needle in a haystack.
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised. I haven't had many conversations with big companies that do not deeply want to have a culture that values the people within their teams and the communities they're in. But yeah, there are a lot of partners that can't necessarily put their name on your jersey, but want to have impact and want to be a part of it. And that's where you get really creative and you have conversations around how can we align our 2 brands to do something really cool together. And it's not always, I talked about it earlier, but it's not always about a check. Sometimes it's about showing up and being in this with us. So, I think there's a wide range of partners and levels, and there's room for everyone. Yeah.
Before I throw it to questions, we do have one more video. I want to get your comments on this one.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know which one. Yes, so that was, yes, thank you. So this was a special partnership with Symetra when we put this video together, but the whole notion is just get in the game with us, right? And what does that mean for the next generation of girls, right, with this opportunity? But I will share one story since you queued up this video. Another powerful part of this narrative that often is not as talked about is the impact on our little boys. And so I'll share a personal story that happened for me. Last year, championship run, Game 5. For those that followed, Phoenix took us to a Game 5 in the semifinals. It was a tough semifinals. Day of the game, we have shoot around. I'm grabbing a coffee at Starbucks. I'm like super laser focused on grabbing my coffee, getting out, getting to shoot around, getting to the game. Dad walks up, a guy walks up to me. Little boy's behind him, grabbing my coffee, and he's like, "Hey, good luck tonight." I'm like, "Yes, it's a big one. Will you guys be there?" "Yes, we'll be there." We were chanting "Go Storm" in the house this morning when my son, he said, when my son over cereal announced to the table, and this little dude standing next to him announced to the table that when he grows up, he wants to be Sue Bird. But I was like, oh my gosh. I go from, I didn't know that moment. The game just faded away for a minute because I walked out of that Starbucks, like tears in my eyes. Not only was I pumped because that is real change. That is real change, that this little boy felt safe in his home and pumped to announce to the table that when he grows up, he wants to be Sue Bird. But that dad walked up to me so proud, so pumped, wasn't asking about the game and this and that, although he clearly had been following. He was so proud to tell me that his son did that. And I thought, this is what's up. This is what's up, but that is also how this whole thing changes. And so that's my story.
Ritu?
Great conversation. Thank you so much. And my question is actually a good segue from that last video. I grew up in a household of girls. Now I have 2 daughters.
Wonderful. Awesome.
And TV hasn't changed very much when it comes to sports. When I talk to my 16 and 13-year-old daughters and we talk about gender pay gap, sports is leading the way. And we talked about that, right? They say it will take 71 years to close that gap on gender pay side. What about sports? Sports is that glue that can bring the society together. What timeline do you see where we can close the gap in sports and then have that replicated in the rest of the industries?
Well, I think, first of all, it's amazing that your daughters are seeing that, aware of it, and wanting to have that conversation, because that is what's going to change it, and that is the power of sports and these brands that have so much visibility. We have a responsibility. I don't know the timeline. You know, I had a conversation with 100% Talent, for those of you that know the organizations that's actively all day just talking about the wage gap and working, and they're in Seattle, they're moving around the country. And they've been doing it for 5 years, and I was asking what the metrics were and what what the increase has been, and this was corporate America and some of the work that they had done, and it was like 4 cents. So I'm not here, this is not where I'm not qualified to say what I think the timeline is. I am hopeful, that is what I'm saying tonight. I am hopeful that human beings can get this right, that we understand the importance of what it means if we say we value women on and off the court, what that actually means, what we have to do. And we're not even talking about outcomes. We could have a whole nother conversation. We know what diversity brings to the bottom line. This is no longer like anecdotal. You know, if we add diversity around the boardroom, the company might be stronger. The company is stronger. We already know. The company is stronger with women. The company is stronger with diversity of all things around that table. And so I don't know the answer in terms of timeline, but I will tell you this, I believe in us. We can do this. We and our leaders and those with power to make the change need to get in the game. Fingers crossed.
So Adrian is in the front row. Adrian Hanauer, the majority owner of the Seattle Sounders, which I don't know if you've heard, there's a match this weekend, it's MLS Cup, I believe. Advice for Adrian, putting you on the spot.
No chance on advice. Adrian is someone that demonstrates by all things he is doing that he does value not only the power of sports for good, but getting in the game with the Reign FC and doing things that it's not about the applause with Adrian. It's about doing what's right. And that is what over the last 5 years at every turn I have seen. And so I'm not offering advice other than just, enjoy Sunday. But you already know this. You have some championships because boy, does that go quickly. Those games are the quickest games in the world. So I hope you take a deep breath and take it in because you're doing incredible work for this city and on that field. And I'm proud to be in this with you.
This upcoming season Sue will be back. Brianna Stewart will be back.
Yes, that's the plan.
Obviously, you're bullish on the season, I assume, as an optimistic leader, but what are the key factors that you're looking at going into the next season? And we're about a year away at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is we're just coming back together, and we have the two of them, and I think this team is hungry. This was one of the first seasons where at the very end of the season, the exit interviews and the conversations with the players were actually all about the next year already. They're hungry. They're all over the world playing, Sue and Stuart getting prepared for the season, but they're hungry. So no motivation needed, right? This group is motivated to come back, compete for this city.
That makes me nervous to hear that they're overseas playing. And that gets back to the pay equity issue.
Yeah, that's the financial model for these players.
Yeah. So big picture advice. So I will say there's tons of inside details. I do know that you drew your unconditional love and the ability to look at players as humans, not as just simply employees from your mom, right? And your dad?
Oh, no question. I mean, I think you've got to just decide what things are about. And I don't think this is unique to sports, but if you're in a unique position to lead others, it's got to be about the other people. I mean, I do believe outcomes are a function of that and a product of that. So yes, of course, I believe deeply that we have this unique opportunity to be in it with these professional athletes, but their health, their well-being, who they are as human beings is a far one above anything else, no question.
And does that work against or in the interest of the long-term goals? Because in the short term,
that's always the answer. That's always the answer.
Which is?
Always the answer to invest in and believe in the human beings you're working with, and they're what's number one to them. I mean, health, right? Number one to all of us. Health, And I think we've got to just stay focused on the long game here, which is hard in the short run at times. But is it even that hard? No, I don't think so. I mean, at the end of the day, just do the right thing, and I think that always wins.
Yeah.
I believe that always wins, whether you have a championship or not.
Please join me in thanking the CEO of the Seattle Storm,
Thanks
Alisha
for coming out.
Valavanis.